They can't fix the history they did. Their ancestors made this country into a slave hell. But they can clean it up now because they got the Smithsonian. They can get rid of all the slavery stuff.
Hey guys, so Joy Reid may no longer have a show on MSNBC, but you cannot escape her, okay? She is here and she's gonna keep talking until people stop inviting her on their programs, which I guess will be never for the left. She doesn't have a lot of value to add to political conversations, but she is pretty funny. So for today's topic, she chose white men and their fragility, and how this white fragility or white male fragility is destroying America. So let's hear her out.
Hey everyone, you've joined me in mid-conversation. It's Joy Reid and I. We're talking about mediocre white men and their fragility and how it has destroyed and is destroying America. And we have personal stories. And the reason why I've invited Joy is, first and foremost, any opportunity I can have talk to Joy Reid is always welcome. And number two, she said yes, which is fantastic. And number three, it's because each and every single time we've had Joy on the left hook, we have MAGA combing through her every word, and a clip usually goes viral. And again, it's usually some mediocre MAGA man and the fragility that is offended by Joy's honesty and truthness and bluntness, and then they get really riled up. And so this time around, I'm like, you know what? Let's just give it to him straight. Give it to him hot on a platter. And I also want to give props to Joy, who put on some powder and blush and hoop earrings, and she's like, women got to do this, and meanwhile, I look like this. Um, I'm I'm traveling, folks. This is why I swear I'm blinking twice. I am safe.
Well, do not worry, Wajahat Ali, I think that's his name. I don't think that Joy Reid is really showing you up too badly. And I confess that I am not a mediocre MAGA man, but I might be a mediocre MAGA woman. So I'm gonna give I'm gonna give Joy Reid and Wajahat Ali what they want. I'm gonna comb through and find something to get really upset about. And they make it easy because this entire interview is filled with some of the most absurd quotes you'll hear in your life. Maybe not, actually, if you were a regular viewer of the Joy Reid show, but if you were a regular viewer of the Joy Reid show, you probably have brain damage. But let's turn to the part of the interview where they really dig into the problem with white men, and Joy Reid's gonna give us a little history lesson.
Black people are citizens in the country is it said so in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. Before that, blacks weren't citizens because, again, that whiteness carried with it literal citizenship. All your rights came with that white card. And this is one of the reasons, by the way, that so many Latinos are anti-black. Because even though by the one drop rule, they're all black, because just by the rules of white people, they have that one drop, right? That's why the little swarthy, they got a little bit of, little bit of sauce in them. But a lot of them have African ancestry, but they deny it and they try to whiten themselves, right? The blanquimiente, I think they call it. Blanquimiento, I think is the name of it. And because they're trying to aspire to that card, that white card has more power than money.
So I think that Joy Reid just gave every Latino a black pass. I mean, that's pretty awesome. It's very generous. Thank you, Joy Reid. I loved her impression of a spicy Latina, too. I didn't know that she had that in her. I look forward to seeing what other racial caricatures she's going to pop out of her bag. Maybe a East Asian impression. I don't know. This could be this could be the revamp of her show, actually. Joy Reid doing various offensive things in the name of liberalism. Okay.
In America. Yeah. Right? And even there are some immigrants who are themselves black people. I mean, or Candace Owens, black people who want that card, who Clarence Thomas, who cling to that card. Okay. So what you're saying is absolutely true. But the purpose of the Klan was to stop black people from voting, because when black people voted, they did get in Congress. Louisiana, which had a majority black population because of slavery, was sending black United States senators to Washington. Mississippi, that had a majority black population because of slavery, had statewide black elected officials. The lieutenant governor was black. And so what happened was, when you had open multiracial democracy, black people were able to elect not just black people, but liberal whites, which used to be called Republicans. And so the fear of the economic elite is always that the non-elite will all get together and French Revolution they ass. And the easiest way to keep white people out of the fight against capitalism is to make white people side with the elite based on that card. And so
Yep.
the trick really, they think it's a trick on you and me. The trick is on white people because
Always.
what they're doing is they're saying, I would rather Donald Trump be a billionaire than I be able to pay my rent and eat. Because that card is more valuable to me than my rent. It's more valuable to me than anything. And then the last piece I'll put of it to get back to your mediocrity thing, Donald Trump, in some ways, people try to say God put him in the White House. I don't believe God is that cruel. But in a way, I'm thinking the way you could justify saying that, Donald Trump is the physical embodiment of all of America's sins. He's
Yeah, I agree
sloppy,
completely.
right? He's sloppy. He's unkempt. Everything about him is false. His hair is a pretense of non-baldness. He's old, but his followers try to pretend that he looks like Superman. He's a terrible businessman and a failure who gets to fake success because he's white, so banks keep lending him money even when he's failing. His father scoops money out of his siblings' inheritance to give him when he fails. He's a fuck up, but he's able to be a success because white America keeps saying, no, 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 that guy is what success looks like. He's only a success on that TV show because when he was at his brokest, he gets hired to be on The Apprentice. His boardroom couldn't even be used on The Apprentice. And I found this out in my first my Trump book because it was so shoddy and unkempt. I went in Trump Tower.
Okay, let me interrupt Joy Reid's unhinged rant for a second and just point out that not only is it unhinged, but there's a little bit of faulty reasoning going on here. So she basically pinned all of Donald Trump's success on the fact that he's white. But they also acknowledge that there's plenty of white people who are not nearly as wealthy or successful as Donald Trump. So it seems like that cannot be the independent factor motivating his success. It's also pretty bizarre to suggest that people just voted for Trump because he's white and, screw it if the grocery bill is $500 for the week. People were not happy with the economy under Joe Biden, and I think people didn't have a lot of faith in Kamala Harris's ability to lower the cost of eggs, let's say. That was a big issue in the last election cycle. Frankly, I didn't think people had a lot of faith in Kamala Harris's ability to do anything. She couldn't really even deliver a speech in a coherent fashion, so I'm very grateful that we did not elect her to the highest office in the land. I think that would have been a disaster. But Joy Reid has one explanation for everything, and that explanation is racism. And racism can help you in America if you're Donald Trump, or racism can just beat you down. She takes a very religious angle on it, too, that Donald Trump is the embodiment of America's sins. It's almost like she thinks he's this Antichrist sort of figure.
In the 80s, it was tacky and sad. His marriage is a fraud. Melania clearly won't even touch him. The last time she let him touch her, they had Barron. Clear that he ain't touching her now. He doesn't believe in marriage. He doesn't have morality. He got 3 baby mamas, 5 children. Everything about him is a lie. He's not a Christian, but Christians love him. But he embodies the greed, the shamelessness, the lasciviousness of capitalism. And now also to your main, and I think really important point, the mediocrity. He could never be JFK. He's
Nope.
not handsome. He's not suave. He's not brave. He was never a war hero like JFK. He has none. Even RFK can never be JFK. None of these people stand up to JFK's legacy. But he can only get a theater named after him by stealing JFK's. Melania can only get a ballroom, the Kit Kat Club lady he met at the Kit Kat Club. We don't know who introduced him, but Jeffrey Epstein was around. She can only get a ballroom named after her by being married to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, he said himself, he could never get a Kennedy Center honor. Unworthy. But he can get one now. He can steal one because he owns a Kennedy Center. They can't fix the history they did. Their ancestors made this country into a slave hell. But they can clean it up now because they got the Smithsonian. They can get rid of all the slavery stuff.
Yes, the American public would just be tragically uninformed about the history of chattel slavery if we didn't have an exhibit in the Smithsonian about a black trans Statue of Liberty. I mean, really, that was one of the art pieces that was going to feature in the exhibit. The artist pulled the show, I think. But Joy Reid wants to play the historical blame game because she knows that she's not going to get any pushback from this guy on it. We could do that. It'd be very difficult. I mean, we could create a genealogy of everyone's ancestors going back to Adam and Eve, in which case we'd all be guilty, which actually, is sort of the premise of Christian thought. You're born into sin. But Joy Reid is just using this as an easy way to attack Trump and to attack all American white people, even those who might have ancestors who never owned slaves or who came to America after slavery had been abolished. Doesn't matter. You're all guilty by association. So thank you, Joy Reid.
They got PragerU that can lie about the history to the children. They can't originally invent anything more than they ever were able to invent good music. We black folk gave y'all country music, hip hop, R&B, jazz, rock and roll. They couldn't even invent that, but they have to call a white man the king because they couldn't make rock and roll. So they have to stamp the king on a man whose main song was stolen from an overweight black woman. You ain't nothing but a hound dog. Think about the lyrics. Why would a man, you ain't nothing but a hound dog, lying all the time? That's a song a woman sings about a man. He stole that song and made it a hit because he couldn't invent rock and roll. Even the Beatles knew that. They were like, we didn't invent this shit. We're singing black people's music. The Stones admitted it. So my whole thing is,
yes, it's my favorite time of the day. We're relitigating rock and roll. Okay, this pops up again and again as an example of some sort of like white imperialism where white people have stolen this cultural artifact from black people and they've turned it into their own thing and they've greatly profited off of it. What is the history of music and invention in general? It's building on things that already exist. Now, Joy Reid does seem to be talking about music in the American context specifically, but to say that white people have made no contributions to the history of music and music theory is totally absurd. I mean, I would like to refer Joy Reid to any symphony. And on the point about Elvis, yes, I'm sure that he was inspired by some black musicians. I'm sure that those musicians were also inspired by many of the rural white people that they were around who also contributed to country music. Joy Reid, why don't you give those people some credit? But Joy Reid is never going to give poor white people credit. She doesn't like giving white people credit in general because this is no more than a 53-minute racist harangue against whites. It's just an excuse for her to ad-lib about how much she dislikes white people.
When you invent a country where you don't tell white people that they need to innovate, even Elon Musk didn't invent them damn Teslas. 2 other men invented it. He just bought it. And so when you tell them you don't have to be excellent, you just have to be white, you will get mediocrity. You will get mediocrity because they're not asking white people to be great. They're not asking them to be great. They're telling them you can be the opposite of great and be defense secretary. You can be the opposite of great and be Homeland Security Secretary. They're telling white people a lie so that they will believe that they have achieved when all they're doing is thieving greatness from other people. And I actually think that is...
Come on, Joy Reid. They're telling white people that they don't have to be qualified to obtain these positions of power or to get good things in life. I think there may be a bit of distraction afoot because what she's actually describing is the current setup for non-white people. I should say non-white and non-Asian mostly. Take the context of college admissions. If you are applying under the banner of Hispanic or Black, your chances are greatly increased of getting into the school. Even if your SAT or ACT score is a little bit low, they might be able to overlook it because, you bring other values to the school. You round out the diversity of the incoming class. And if you do have a high SAT or ACT score, then so much the better. I mean, you're a shoo-in for Harvard. Of course, these schools are claiming that, ever since the Supreme Court ruling, we really don't look at race as an independent factor, but we're just considering the general diversity of the school. And, these are just strong applicants who happen to have lower standardized testing scores. But everyone knows the truth, which is that if you were applying as Asian or white, it's going to be more difficult for you to get into these Ivy League universities in general. Joe Biden's administration was actually a great illustration of what Joy Reid is talking about here. So you don't have to be great to become the press secretary. Look at Karine Jean-Pierre. She did a terrible job. She lied consistently to the press. She didn't even lie in a convincing way. She would just say things one day and say the opposite the next day, and everyone was supposed to accept that. You also don't have to be great to become vice president. Kamala Harris was laughably bad. You don't have to be great to become a Supreme Court justice. Ketanji Brown Jackson is now mocked by her colleagues in their opinions for not understanding the Constitution. So Joy Reid's theory may not be a bad one, but she's not applying it correctly. But what do you think of Joy Reid? Let me know in the comment section below. Give this video a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.